Have you ever stopped to wonder what our physical difference is? Skin color, hair texture, all of it? What do they actually mean? Today, we are going to use the power of modern genetics to unpack the real story of human variation. For centuries, we've used these visible traits to put people into boxes. But does science actually back any of that up? Do these things we see on the outside point to some kind of deeper fundamental division within our species? That's the huge question we're tackling today.
And to get to the bottom of it, we're just going to follow the evidence. First, we'll break down the central error behind the whole idea of race. Then, we're going to look at something incredible, our shared genetic blueprint. We'll trace our family story back to our recent origins in Africa, and then we'll see how our visible differences are really just these amazing skin-deep adaptations. And all of that is going to lead us to the final definitive scientific verdict.
Okay, let's dive right in with the most crucial point. The concept of race, as we usually think about it, isn't a biological reality. It's a human invention. It's a really powerful social idea, for sure, but it has zero basis in our biology. This is it. This is the core mistake. Just assuming that what you see on the surface, things like skin color or the shape of someone's eyes, tells you anything meaningful at all about what's going on underneath. It's a huge assumption, and it's one that modern science has completely, and I mean completely, taken apart. So, if race isn't a biological concept, then what does our biology actually tell us? Well, when we look at the hard genetic evidence, the story that comes into focus isn't one of division at all. It's a story of profound, undeniable unity. This number right here, it changes everything. Seriously. Take any two people on this planet from anywhere with any ancestry, and their DNA is 99.9% identical. All of the incredible, beautiful diversity we see in humanity, it all comes from just 0.1% of our genome. Genetically speaking, we are practically identical. And this is where it gets even more amazing. If you zoom in on that tiny 0.1% of genetic difference, a whopping 90% of that variation is found within local populations, not between them. Let that sink in for a second. Two people from the same town, the same village, could be more genetically different from each other than either one of them is from someone on the complete opposite side of the world. It totally shatters the idea of separate groups. So if we aren't in these neat little biological boxes, how does human variation actually work? The answer is something called clinal variation. It just means that human traits don't have these sharp, clean borders. Instead, they blend gradually across geography, kind of like colors in a watercolor painting, just flowing into one another. There is no line on a map where you can say one race stops and another one begins. It just doesn't exist. So what explains this incredible similarity we all share? Well, to find the answer, we have to go back to the beginning of our human family story. A story that is much, much more recent than you probably think. As a species, we are incredibly young. We're just babies, evolutionarily speaking. While our species originated in Africa, the epic journey that populated the rest of the planet only kicked off around 70,000 years ago. In the grand timeline of evolution, that's like the blink of an eye. There just hasn't been enough time for us to split off into separate biological groups or subspecies. And that migration created something called a genetic bottleneck. See, the small groups of people who left Africa carried only a small piece, a fraction, of our species' total genetic diversity with them. The incredible result of that? Today, the greatest human genetic diversity on Earth is still found in Africa, the very continent where our story began. Which, of course, brings us right back to our very first question. If we're all so genetically similar, why do we look so different? Well, the answer isn't deep division. It's actually a story of brilliant, superficial adaptations to different environments all over the globe. Skin color is the perfect example. It has nothing to do with race, it's a balancing act with the sun. Near the equator, where UV radiation is intense, darker skin evolved to protect a vital nutrient called folate. But as humans moved to places with less sun, lighter skin evolved to help the body produce crucial vitamin D. It's just a fantastic localized adaptation to sunlight. And this is probably the most critical takeaway of all. These traits are not a package deal. Let's be really clear. The genes for skin color have absolutely nothing to do with genes for intelligence, or for athletic ability, or anything else. Features like nose shape or hair texture, they all evolved independently, responding to different local pressures. What this means is that our visible traits are a terrible, terrible guide for predicting anything deeper about a person. So we've looked at the genetics, we've walked through our shared history, we've seen how our adaptations work. What's the final, conclusive scientific verdict on all of this?
And there it is. The verdict is in. The scientific consensus, from genetics to biology to anthropology, is overwhelming and it is unequivocal. We are one single, beautifully diverse human species. The idea that we can be neatly sliced up into different biological races is, simply put, a fiction.
And that leaves us with one last massive question. If science has proven, beyond a doubt, that race isn't a biological reality, then why does it still have so much power in our world? Understanding that, well, that's the next step in this whole conversation.